Hi, everyone. I'm Liz Costanzo, the 612 ISS for Social Studies, located at headquarters in Alexandria, Virginia. And I'm really excited to be here with you today to introduce a mini lesson on cause and effect. In this particular mini lesson, we're going to do the mini lesson, which is applicable to grades 6, 7, and 8. It could even be used at the high school. And then we're going to move into the real lesson the lesson that goes with this, which is River Valley Civilizations in China, which has a lot of things that can be applied in other classes. I just happen to pick this one as the model, and we're just going to walk through that one. So we're going to start off as we have done in the past with the mini lessons, kind of working through it like you're the students. It's going to be kind of awkward because the parts where I'm asking for responses, of course, you aren't going to be able to give those to me, but just work with me here. I think you're going to really love this. It's a great way to teach cause and effect to students, and it's particularly effective. It uses cartoons. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So we're going to be learning about cause and effect today. So what I'd like you to do is take a moment and in your notebooks, write down your own definition of cause and effect. So let's take about 1 minute to do that. Great. So now that you've written that in your notebook, take a look at the definitions up on the screen. Cause is why something happened, and the effect is what happened. If that's not what you wrote down, go ahead and change your definition to have the actual definition or for cause and effect. So let's get started learning about cause and effect, and we're going to do that by practicing with cartoons. So first, take a moment to read the cartoon. What was the cause and what was the effect? So take just a minute, take a close look. See the picture? All right. So in the cartoon, it says, I was very, very happy when we got PJ because I wasn't the littlest anymore. So what was the cause? Exactly. PJ was born. And then what was the effect? Yeah, he was very, very happy. Did somebody get the other effect? Because there were two. Exactly. He wasn't the littlest anymore. So cause, PJ was born, effect, he was very, very happy, and he wasn't the littlest anymore. So here we had one cause, but we had more than one effect or multiple effects because of that one cause. Okay, so let's take a look at the next cartoon. This is called My Life in a Nutshell. So just take a moment to read the cartoon. Have any of you ever tried to write a New Year's resolution? All right, so what's the cause? Correct. The person is trying to write a New Year's resolution. And then what's the effect? Yep, she has a headache. So our cause, she was writing a New Year's resolution. The effect, she has a headache. In this particular one, there's a cause and a single effect. All right, now let's go to our final cartoon. This cartoon is Beetle Bailey. This was popular a long time ago, but sometimes you can still see these on the online or in the paper. So let's take a look at this one. Take a moment to read through it. So we have multiple possibilities for this particular one. So let's talk about some of the ones cause and effects that you came up with. All right, one cause might be that it was a beautiful day, and the effect of that was the commanding officer tells Beetle and Miss Buxley to take a break. Great. Another cause, the high-ranking officer, still the same cause, tells Beetle, the soldier, to go take a walk. The effect, he gets in trouble with his immediate supervisor, the sergeant, right? So we have the same cause, but we have a different effect. So one cause, went for a walk. Another cause, the effect was he got in trouble. Then there's another cause. Did anybody pick up this one? Beetle is nice to people. So the effect is people are friendly to Beetle. So this particular cartoon had different causes and effects in it, kind of showing you how complex sometimes figuring out cause and effect can be. So we looked at 3 cartoons to set the stage for what we're going to be doing next. But before we move on, let's take one moment to check your understanding of cause and effect. So here, in your notebooks, if you could, please draw a chart that has cause, why something happened, and effect, what happened on your chart. Okay, take a minute to do that. This is going to be your personal example. Great. It looks like everyone's getting that written down in their notebook. So now I'm going to kind of give you my example and then you can go ahead and do yours. Okay, so I like to cook and I was distracted one day. And so what happened was I put a tablespoon of baking powder into a recipe that called for a teaspoon. I think it was even a quarter teaspoon of baking powder. It wasn't very much, but I used the wrong measurement. So the effect was I pulled the cookies out of the oven and they looked very weird. And then there was another effect. Surprisingly, people would take a bite of the cookies and then they wouldn't eat them. So I would draw my picture of me measuring, and then my effect picture would be maybe someone go, "Ah." Anyway, maybe not, but not eating the cookie. So there you go. So take a minute and do your cause and effect for your personal example. Okay, teachers. So the students are going ahead, they're making their cause and their effects and making little illustrations to go with those. And then I would have them share them with the person sitting next to them, share a few out with the class, and then we're going to move on to River Valley civilizations in China. So this is our mini lesson. It introduces cause and effect using cartoons. And then we're going to move into the lesson in River Valley civilizations where we're going to be looking at cause and effect and chronology. So in this particular lesson, we're going to discover the cause and effects of the growth of civilization in China along the River Valley, and then they're going to be creating a cartoon to demonstrate their learning. So in this particular lesson, we're going to be using an oldie but goodie. We're going to bring back out readwritethink.org, and we're going to be having them use the comic creator. I'm sure you're familiar with that. If you're not, it's linked in our lesson. And I also used Ruby Star, another oldie but goodie, to make the rubric for their comics. So we're tying in the comics as the introduction into creating comics to go with comic strips to go with the lesson on River Valley civilizations. So the social studies practices here are identifying ways that events are related chronologically to one another in time, and then identify cause and effects from current events or grade level content in historical events. So the other thing about this lesson is that it will work with any 7th or 8th grade as well. Just you need to pick out that one that has a great cause and effect. And it's history. There's always cause and effect. So it's super easy to find something that's going to work if you like this lesson and want to implement in your class. But I'm just going to walk through this one because the whole intent was the mini lesson. And then I got carried away creating the real lesson, or the not real lesson. They're both real lessons, but the content specific lesson. So here we go. So what's going to happen here? We're answering the question, what caused civilizations to grow and change in China? So we're going to do this in 3 parts. Part number 1, you're going to be divided the class in half. One half is going to be given causes, and the other half is going to be giving effects. Then the students are going to match the cause and effect by walking around and reading each other's strips until they think they have a match. And then they're going to come to the teacher, verify that their match is correct. And then from there, they're going to go to a human timeline that you've set up in the classroom from 7,000 BCE to 0, and they will actually 0 to 7,000 BC, and they will be putting themselves on this human timeline. So we've got the cause and effect by them locating the two and hooking them together, and then we have the human timeline, which is going to get us into that chronological piece. So then we're going to actually have them look at the timeline here. This lesson is for 6th grade. So what we want them to notice is, well, we're going to ask them, what do you notice, rather than telling one what they notice. So they're probably going to notice that it starts at 0. It has BCE. It goes until 7,000 BC. In the middle is 3,500 BCE. And that's a lot of time on a timeline. So we're just going to take a look at this human timeline they're going to be creating and talk about where would they find today on this timeline, right? And work through that with the students so they understand this concept of chronology and what timelines look like. All right, so the next step in the process is we are going to model the process because it's complicated, right? They have all these directions. So finding a student in the classroom, we are going to pull a student up and be our partner. And I use the first event on the timeline, which is at 7,000 BCE. And the strips that we're using for the activity, which are included in your resources, those I simply took from the HMH textbook and made it into a chart that goes the effect, the cause is not in bold font, and the effect is in bold font. And they're in sequential order. So when you cut them up, you'll know the sequence that they go in. And then you're also going to give a copy at the end of the kids when they're creating their comic strips. So basically here we're going to say, hey, student, thanks for helping me out. Here's your information. Give them a strip. What do you notice? Correct, it's in bold print, which means it is an effect. So then I'm going to share my cause with the group. People grew rice in the middle of the Shengying Valley, north along the Huanghe River. The land was better for growing cereals such as millet and wheat. At the same time, people tamed animals such as pigs and sheep. In parentheses, it has 7,000 BCE. Then, ask the student, what's your effect? It's in bold on their sheet. It says, China's population grew and villages appeared along the rivers. And then I say, I think we're a match. Let's ask Miss Costanzo. Remember, they're going to go to the teacher to make sure. So they come to the teacher. It's like, yes, you're a match. Now place yourselves on the timeline. How do we know where to go? And then they can notice that this one has 7,000 BCE. So they're going to be going to the end of the timeline as part of the human timeline. I also would mention to students here, not all of the sheets have a date on them. So they're going to have to talk to each other when they make that human timeline. So they know where they're going to be going. And they may not be perfect, but they're going to get pretty close because there's dates just for your information spread out. So it's kind of easy to kind of get them on that timeline. All right. So we've explained it to the students. And they have that, this shows the little team moving on the timeline. They're going to stand there and wait for other people to come, and they're going to talk to each other to figure it out. Okay. So that's our kind of modeling for the students. From there, let's do this. So now you're going to divide your class in half. It's really simple to give the strips out. Like one side is going to get the effects, the other side is going to get the causes, and let the kids see each other so they're not wasting time trying to figure out if they're a cause, who the effects are, okay? So in this particular one, make sure they say, okay, these people are the effects and these people are the causes. So now let's go find your match. And at this time, you've already distributed the strips, and then the kids are going to walk around trying to figure out who the matches are with their content. So they're going around, they're finding their matches, hooray. When they think they have a match, they come to you, and I would give them about 6 minutes. You don't want to give them too long. And remember, they're going to come confirm with you, and you can just kind of walk around or stay at the front of the classroom as the monitor, whatever works for you. And then once you confirm, they're going to place themselves on the human timeline that you created. If you have a big board, that will work great. Otherwise, I just make little signs that say 0, 3,500 BCE and 7,000 BCE, and then put them up in the room so you can get the kids on that timeline. All right, so now that everyone's in place, they're going to learn about the growth of civilizations along the river. It's also known as the Yellow River in China. So listen carefully to the cause and effects as the students are reading. And think about what might understanding cause and effect challenging. Okay, so as you're listening to your classmates read cause and effect, why might something be challenging about this? So then there's 11 events on here. So each group starting at 7,000 BCE will work their way down the timeline to the most recent date, which I believe is 450 BCE. I'm not positive, but I think it's around there. So they're going to read off their things and think about what's challenging. And hopefully what they're going to come up with is that one cause might have multiple effects, and that you could even say that just because you had like one of the long-term causes was just the idea that they started farming, right? And that how does that impact everything else? So this is kind of a fun conversation. So we have the students up making their human timeline. They're talking about cause and effect. And once the human timeline is done, you've also given them a really great overview of the civilizations starting along the Yellow River. All right, so then what? The students now are going to create comic strips. So we're bringing it back to our mini lesson of comic strips. And on the comic strip, they're going to explain explaining cause and effect in Chinese river valley civilizations. And they're going to include as appropriate approximate dates. So they want it to be chronologically correct when they're making their cartoon, as well as having the cause and effect. So how we're going to do this with our students then is we're going to share the rubric with them. And I made this in Ruby Star. I know it's an oldie, but a goodie, and it still works. So here's our Ruby Star rubric on creating a comic strip. And what I typically do is just look at the 4 because we want them to shoot for the highest one. So we'll take a look at the 4. We'll hand out the rubric to all the students so they know what they're shooting for. And they can either create it in Ruby Star or they can create it, they can either create their comic strip in Comic Creator, or they can do it on a piece of paper if they like to draw. So at this point, I'd introduce them to Comic Creator, which is also linked in our learning plan for today, and kind of quickly walk them through Comic Creator, and then also tell the students that they prefer to draw it. I have paper and colored pencils available for them to do so. So they're going to be creating their comic strips. You're going to have about 20 minutes in class. You can decide if you want to, extend to the next day. So that's your Comic Creator. They're going to be showing cause and effects. And their exit slip for the day is the event that had the greatest effect on China was, they're going to put the event, and then they're going to explain because. So as you're having them close up class, you're going to do that exit slip, and then you can kind of check and see where they are with their knowledge about cause and effect in China. So with that in mind, that is our lesson on cause and effect and also on chronological thinking for our 6th graders in River Valley civilizations. So just a couple of teacher-to-teacher thoughts here. Creating a comic strip is a great strategy to support causation and chronological reasoning. The strips that I made, as I said earlier, came directly from the textbook. I just opened up the online version of the HMH textbook. You can do this with Savvis as well for the 7th and 8th grade teachers, and just pulled out the causes and effects, and I put them right in order on that sheet. So I had them in order for me, and then ready to cut them up and share them with the students. This goes with that last thing. This works great across content areas and grade levels. The human timeline is effective. I love to use these in various times throughout the learning process. It just gives those students that sense of, time, which is really great as we help them learn how to read time and just think chronologically as young historians. readwritethink.org. I know you're familiar with it. It's just always nice to bring up things from the past. It has great tools like the Comic Creator, and this is just kind of a great reminder. And once again, Ruby Star, another blast from the past. Great way to create rubrics, super easy to use, and that gives you that way to start your lesson with that rubric, and it doesn't take a ton of time. So that's it for our lesson on causation and chronology for the middle school. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. Thank you so much.